I wanted to do a quick video on this bill that was just submitted a week ago to the U.S. Congress. It's H.R. 464, acknowledging that unborn children are legal and constitutional persons who are entitled to the equal protection of the laws. I've been seeing this pop up on a lot of social media news feeds and pro-life organization groups and pro-life news sites like Live Action News and Lila Rose, and it's starting to make its rounds on organizations like Fox News, Newsmax, and things like that. So what I'm not going to be doing is going through the entire language of this bill. If that's something that you are interested in, leave me a comment here or send me a message, and I'll take the time to walk through the entirety of the language of this bill. The title sounds good, acknowledging that unborn children are legal and constitutional persons. That's great. And are entitled to equal protection of the laws. That sounds great. The problem is that this bill does not do that. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. To start out, I want to talk about or make a specific caveat, right? So this bill does not have the votes in Congress at all. It does not have the votes in the House of Representatives. It definitely does not have the votes in the Senate, nor does it have presidential signing, right? The president 100% will veto this bill if for whatever reason it gets passed through both the House and the Senate. There's no expectation that this bill will pass. It's strategically all about posturing, which isn't a bad thing. That's not a negative critique on this bill. And in fact, if there was a legitimate equal protection bill, which this bill isn't, but if there was, that bill likewise would not have the votes in the House nor the Senate, and the president would veto it. And it likewise would be about posturing, which strategically it's a good thing. Were it a legitimate equal protection bill, one of the positives is it is just the right thing to do. It is right and just to have an equal justice bill submitted, whether or not it has the ability of being passed. So that being said, it is not a bad thing, or my critique against this bill is not that it doesn't have the votes to pass, but rather something entirely different. I think the posturing element is a good thing, and so I'm not against this bill because that is its purpose right now. Like I said, I'm not going to be going through the details and language of this bill during this. I'm merely going to be talking in generalities and the implications of basically the posturing aspect of this and what it is going to do. So like I said, there's no expectation that this bill will pass, but what it is doing is bringing awareness to this topic. It is causing politicians, whether it's local, state, federal, whether they are legislators, executives, lobbyists, whether they're pro-choice or pro-life organizations, religious leaders that are platformed, religious institutions like the SBC, PCA, etc. It's going to force them to join in this conversation about this bill in particular and the positive and negatives surrounding various aspects of this bill. It's going to force them to outline their position. And so that type of exposure is positive. It's going to show where we need to target our education, the content of our education. It hopefully will bring about substantial civil, moderated debate between various groups pertaining to the topics of disagreement within this bill. And so that type of exposure is going to be good. It's going to help us focus in on what things we ought to be talking about, how to develop our arguments for and against specific topics, and who we need to be bringing those topics to, and who we need to be calling to repent, and who we need to be aligning with. Bills like this draw a line in the sand and call people to one side or the other. And I think this is going to be helpful overall. Even though I disagree with the bill, I think it is going to be a benefit to the discussions that we have surrounding the unjust killing of preborn children. It's going to cause very specific conversation between pro-choice advocates and a spectrum of pro-life advocates, not only between each other, but within themselves. And hopefully, it will bring conversation between pro-lifers and abolitionists, and many of the pro-life activists or advocates will really begin to see the inconsistency of their logic and take a biblical approach to abolitionism, leaving the doctrine of demons behind them, which is pro-life doctrine. Really, the main point of disagreement in this piece of legislation is not in the arguments at the beginning, in the whereas. They argue from the Constitution, science, embryology, biology, history, as to why we ought to be considering preborn humans as humans that should be protected equally with all other humans. It does argue that humans in every state of development from fertilization on are human, and as being human ought to be protected, have their rights given to them by God protected. Now, there are other arguments that I would have added into it, but that's neither here nor there for this conversation. After all of the whereas, then it comes to the resolution point. And basically what they're saying is that they ought to be, their 14th Amendment right ought to be protected, that all the laws that protect born humans ought to protect preborn humans. And it explicitly recognizes that all humans, preborn or born, are legal persons. The big issue is when it starts talking about acknowledging our constitutional duty and solemn obligation to guarantee the equal protection of the laws to every unborn child within the jurisdictional and geographic reach of the Constitution. That's exactly what an equal justice bill ought to do. But it's this next sentence that changes and moves it out of being an equal protection bill to one that sanctions the murder of unborn children. And this is what it says: which shall not be construed to permit the prosecution of any woman for the death of her unborn child. So what this bill is doing is saying, hey, preborn children are humans and should be afforded all of the protections under the Constitution unless the person doing the killing is the mother of that unborn child. And that's it. It is giving official sanction, official permission, official allowance to kill her preborn child unjustly. That there will be no due process for her. She can kill her child for any reason that she wants to, by any means that she wants to, up until birth. Now, sure, this bill will close all abortion healthcare facilities. It will remove the unjust killing of preborn children out of the formal healthcare system. But what its unintended consequence is going to be transferring those deaths to self-managed abortion. And we've been saying this for years, and we've seen the results in Texas and a couple of other states. And the pro-life movement as a whole is denying the reality of what this is causing. And they're focusing their movement towards banning pills, banning doctors, banning the sale and purchase of these pills to, again, everybody except mothers that unjustly kill their own preborn children. Like every single one of the regulations or things that they are putting out always exclude mothers that kill their own preborn children. So everywhere it is legal for a woman to purchase, procure, possess, and use these pills. A woman can kill her own preborn child for any reason that she wants to, by any method that she wants to, up until birth. So what this bill would do, were it passed and signed into law, is move the killing of preborn children out of the formal healthcare system into and transition to self-managed abortion, killing the same number of babies at home through self-managed abortion, getting pills online from out of the country, or counterfeit pills through Mexico, or trade through various pop-ups that are going on right now. which in turn is going to make it much harder to stop. In the end, this bill is inconsistent in saying that we want equal protection for all humans unless they're being killed by their mother. What we're doing is creating the venue to continue child sacrifice in our country. And as we're doing it, we're going to be able to pat ourselves on the back and say what a good job we're doing and all of this. And it's just evil. So those are some of the implications. But like I said, even this bill that will not pass is going to do good in that it is going to expose what people really believe about child sacrifice. It is going to show where we need to target our education, target our content, and develop our arguments against this one unjust position. It is still condemning the just and justifying the wicked. Now, I'm not going to speculate as to why they are continuing this anti-Christian, anti-justice, anti-loving position of sanctioning the murder of unborn children as long as it's the mother doing the killing. But we need to have discussions about that topic specifically. And I hope that many of these organizations, politicians, religious leaders will be willing to join me in honest, civil discussion and debate, long-form discussion on this topic specifically. Let us come and reason together about this and move forward with our fight to end child sacrifice, not only in the healthcare system, but entirely. Thank you for listening, and like and share this video, comment on it, help me build the algorithm. Thank you very much.